Hey guys, Foxdrop here with 7 ways on how to get more first bloods both for laners and for junglers. First blood by itself doesn't guarantee that you're going to win a game, however it certainly gets you off on the right foot. For example, in the second half of last season, TSM when getting first blood won almost 80% of their games. SKT won over 90% of their games, and Fnatic won 100% of their games that they got first blood in. In solo queue obviously the dynamics are a little bit different, but the principle is still the same. Obviously you get the extra increase in gold, which is always nice, but I also feel like first blood is very psychological. No one likes to see their team giving up first blood in solo queue, and it may demoralize opponents. Any kind of edge you can get in solo queue is always a good thing, so let's teach you guys how to get more first bloods. This is another video being made in partnership with our lovely friends over at Pro Guides. If you haven't checked them out already, I highly suggest you do so. They make some very good guides, and also have a very nifty service which allows you to talk to very high rated players in real time, where you can ask some questions. But anyway, with all that stuff out of the way, let's get on with the video. The first tip, which is primarily for laners to get more first bloods, is to actually have a champion pool that strays a little bit away from what you see in the current meta. Now I'm not telling you to pick Soraka top lane or Heimerdinger jungle or Urgot anywhere. What I'm trying to say is that if you're picking a champion that the enemy player may not know too much about, then they're not going to give enough respect over to the elements where they really should. Specifically the elements which will allow you to get first blood onto them. Basically you're just using the element of surprise to your advantage. If the enemy player doesn't really know what it is that your champion does, then you can use that to your advantage and jump him when you can get that kill. He's not going to respect your ability to do that, and he may fall prey to you. On the other hand, if you are picking a meta champion, if you're picking a champion that is seen quite a lot, that's quite popular, chances are he knows what that champion does. And like I said, you don't have to pick champions that no one's ever seen, things that are truly out of this world. Just pick things that the enemy player may not be used to playing against. Some good examples of this would be someone like Renekton or Tryndamere top lane. Now of course, both these champions aren't champions that you never see. Both Renekton and Tryndamere are fairly decent champions in my personal opinion, but that doesn't mean that they're part of the meta, and it certainly doesn't mean they're particularly popular either. However, they are both champions that are very good at getting early kills. And when you combine that with the fact that you don't see them too often, the chances of you getting a kill on these champions are higher than the chance of you getting a kill on a similarly aggressive champion that is seen more frequently, that is more popular. The next tip, which is primarily for junglers, is to take advantage of a level 1 invade to attempt to blow summoners and then to camp the lane that doesn't have their flash. Now if you're like me, you really can't be asked to do anything at level 1, you'd rather just browse the internet for a few minutes until things spawn and just sit at your camp and wait for things to kick off. But if you're not like me and you're actually not an idiot, then you should be doing something at level 1. The amount of times I've been caught with my pants down because I've been invaded and I wasn't paying attention, yeah, it's certainly something worth doing. But if you can get that level 1 invade and you can blow someone's summoner, especially if it's a laner's summoner, then that sets you up perfectly to be getting a higher chance of a successful gank for that lane which doesn't have their flash. Sounds pretty obvious, well everything does sound obvious when you say it like this, but at the same time it also means that you're going to have to adapt your jungle route ever so slightly. For example, if it's the top laner that blows his flash and you start bot side, you'll probably want to do like a double buff jungle clear. But on the other hand, if it was bot lane that blew their flash and you're still starting bot side, then you might want to stay at that bot side jungle and not go to your top side until you've ganked the flashless lane. Next tip for the laners out here is to really appreciate the strength of a level 2 advantage. Now this is a tactic which I'm sure a lot of people will be aware of. It's certainly nothing fresh that I'm bringing out here, but I'm currently raising an account up to diamond and I'm in platinum right now, and I still, when I play bot lane, don't get punished for not getting level 2 first as much as I should. Specifically, the mistake that I see laners make is that they don't anticipate when they're about to hit level 2, so they don't start moving for an aggressive play until they've actually hit that level 2. And of course by then it's often too late, because once you've hit level 2 and you start moving, then the enemy laners will realize you're level 2, you have the advantage, and they'll start running away. But if you start moving while you're still level 1, then they're not so suspicious and you can catch people, and it's a really easy way for you to at least blow some summoners and very often get a kill as well if you do it right. In order to get that level 2 power spike, all you've got to do is make sure that you're pushing the enemy minions down faster than the opponents can do so to your minions. And if you're playing bot lane and you feel like your lane ally isn't pushing as hard as they should be, just roleplay midwife and tell them to push harder. And then of course, once you see that experience bar about to hit level 2, before you get it, start moving forward and you're setting yourself up perfectly for getting that first blood, or at least some summoners. The next tip coming in here is going to be switching back for the old junglers. It's the level 2 cheese invade. This is something I feel a little bit dirty just telling you about, and I'm probably going to have to take a shower after making the video. But the level 2 cheese invade is really powerful for blowing summoners and often getting a really easy kill. And the great thing about the level 2 cheese invade is that anyone can do it. Normally when you're invading and counter jungling, you have to make sure that you are stronger than the enemy jungler. Because of course, if you're not stronger than the enemy jungler, then well, you can't kill him. But the great thing about the level 2 invade, or maybe the horrible thing about it, depends which side you're on, is that the concept of the level 2 cheese invade revolves entirely around finding the enemy jungler really low on health. Depending who you're against, you can find some people that are really vulnerable to this, people who get quite low in their very early clears. But all you have to do to execute this level 2 cheese invade is to start bot side, get a good leash so you kill it fast, and then as soon as you killed that first camp, move into the enemy jungler's bot side buff. If you do this, there's a good chance you'll find the enemy jungler on their buff camp, taking that away by themselves after they've taken that first camp. And by the time you get there, they will probably be decently low enough on health that you can blow their summoners or just get a cheeky kill. Next tip for laners, a pretty simple one, but a very important one. Take ignite. If you are really insistent on getting that first blood and snowballing the game, then you need to have ignite to do that. Of course, if you're an AD carry, then don't take ignite, just stick to heal, but supports, tops and mid laners, you can all take ignite. It can be a little bit risky to take ignite because if you don't get snowballing, then it can be an inferior choice to other summoner spells as the game progresses. But generally speaking, if you're confident that you'll get that first blood and you're really gunning for it, then you have to have the ignite. I mean, you don't have to have the ignite. I'm sure there are people who have got first blood without taking it, but it's just like chatting up a bird at the bar by using a really cheesy joke without getting a drink down at first. You know, I'm sure there are people who have done it. I'm sure it's possible, but you know, if that's going to be a strategy, then good luck to you. Now before we move on to our last 2 points, I just want to say here that I really appreciate you guys checking the video out. If you are enjoying it, don't forget you can leave that cheeky thumbs up and you can subscribe to me for more too. I don't know what the bloody hell's gone on with my YouTube recently, but statistically speaking, it's in a pretty big recession, and I'm really appreciative of you guys who are still watching the videos. But anyway, enough with that bullcrap, let's move on to our penultimate point, and this is going to be another one for the junglers. This tip is about analyzing lane matchups so you can decide which places are going to be the easier kills and to therefore adapt your jungle route based off of that analysis. It sounds a tad nerdy and maybe a bit confusing as well, but don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds. All you've got to do is just look at who your team's playing, look at who the enemy's playing, and see which lanes you think will be easy to gank. This goes without saying, but the easier you can make your life when it comes to ganking lanes, the higher success chance you're going to have. Shocking, I know, that if you gank lanes that are easy to gank, you're probably going to have more success. But even if you can just like stabilize yourself from that shock, if you can just gather yourself from the knowledge bomb I just dropped, this is something which I still don't see people do enough, even going into Diamond. Like if your mid laner is someone like TF who can just throw out that point and click range stun, and he's against someone who's pretty immobile, then that's a lane that's going to be rather easy to gank. And if your bot lane is someone like Soraka Varus and you're against people who have a lot of gap closers, then surprise, that bot lane's probably not going to be a place that you can gank very easily. But it's not just about knowing which lanes are easy to gank, you do have to adjust your jungle route. So you don't want a jungle route that leads you into the top lane if that top lane isn't somewhere you really want to be ganking. Like, to be honest, it doesn't really matter where you start, it just matters where you end up. Like say for example, you're on the blue team and you want to start at your Krugs. You can do Krugs, red chickens and then gank mid or bot, or you can do Krugs, red, blue buff and then go and gank topside. Just adapt what side of the map you're going to end up on when you hit that level 3 after your third camp. Just a little side note here as well, for me personally, I have a little cheat sheet of champions that I like to camp if I see them in game. For me, whenever I see a Riven, a Pantheon or a Yasuo in lane, if it's my team or the enemy team, I'm going to camp that lane. Because these are champions who have more balls than brains and they're always going aggressive and they either snowball really hard in a positive way or really hard in a negative way. So you kind of want to be there to make sure that if it's your teammate, they snowball in a good way, and if it's the enemy, they snowball in a bad way. But generally speaking, speaking, if you do see quite a cheesy aggressive laner, you want to camp that lane too, because they do often rely on snowballing to be strong. On top of that, when I see those AP mage supports in bot lane, I like to camp those lanes as well. People like Zyra, Brand and Vel'Koz. These are champions who again tend to play quite aggressively, but they're also extremely squishy and don't have any gap closers. What's even nicer about these guys being so squishy is that because they're in bot lane, it turns into 3 people wailing on them, so it's even easier to kill them in a gank. And this last point here, which is something for the laners, hurts my soul a little bit to say this, but I have to admit it's a very good strategy. You should lie to your junglers about when your enemies have their summoners up. Like, I can't tell you just how many times I've said to my jungler, yo, this guy doesn't have his flash, just so the jungler would come to my lane, and so we could then get an easy kill or just blow his flash or something like that. Like, I'll be the first to admit, as a jungle main, I do feel like the jungle game is very mental. And sometimes I see lanes and I just think, you know what, I probably can't do anything there, and so I don't go to that lane. However, if you are the laner and you know that actually we can do something here, if you tell the jungler that the enemy laner doesn't have his flash, then your jungler is probably going to go to that lane thinking it's going to be an easy kill. And to be honest, even as a jungle main myself, I don't actually think there's anything really wrong with this, because it kind of breaks that psychological barrier where I think that there's nothing I can do even when there is something that I can do. And hey, even if they do have their flash and they end up using it and you don't get a kill, well, then you've granted yourself a bit of lane pressure, you've given away their flash, and it still works in your favor. And then if your jungler rage at you, just say, oh shit, I'm sorry, I thought he used it. Oh crap, that came up earlier than I thought it did. You know, just chuck out some excuses, just act dumb, and your jungler just think you're just another monkey from solo queue. But anyway, those are all the tips that I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like I said, feel free to give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to me for more educational league content. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming at twitch.tv/Foxdrop. All those links are down below in the description, guys. Once again, thank you a lot to our friends at Pro Guys for helping with the editing of this video. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and I will see you all in my next video.